Money is flowing into the markets, and crypto is showing some massive signs of life. Join us today as we take a look at what the market is showing us. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realized there is massive potential for life-changing gains over a bigger period, 4 to 8 years, and you're looking for discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, kind of like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to the crypto space 7 years back, and I was looking for a crypto channel or group that understood crypto as an investment and discussed the most important things like investment cycles, different projects that had solid fundamentals behind them, especially when those projects were cheap. Because as an investor, one of the key principles is buying low so that then later you can sell for much higher. Well, I didn't find that, so we created that. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of rainmakers. And you see them here in the chat. You'll see some in our free Telegram group. The link to that is below. And you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group. That is the gateway to access the private Discord. And that private Discord is where the best discussion and best info is. There are many other benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many of the different markets out there, and none of this would be taken as financial advice. So if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button, strap in for the show, because today is Wednesday and we have Paul from DEVVE joining us. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here, especially this week after the rate cut and with the markets hotting up, looking really exciting. It's about time, isn't it, really? Things started to move, and it's great that it's doing it. So good to be here. I haven't had a chance to look at all the picks for this week because obviously we were just getting them just a few moments ago, but I've seen one of them that looks really very interesting, massive breakout, and long may that continue.
Absolutely. It's fun seeing some massive money come into the market, and we're seeing some things that pumped 70 and 80%, just one or two of them, but some 50% and a slew of them pumping 30%. And this is some signs of life. So that maybe we're ready for the next leg up of the bull market. Let's see. I've got your screen here. Now, with the rate cuts last week, what did that do to other markets that may impact crypto?
Yeah, well, the first point to make is that, this is something we were looking for quite some time, and it was ahead of the market in the sense that the impression that was given before the rate cut was that there wouldn't be any. And it was only into the last sort of couple of weeks into the actual rate cut that the market suddenly decided it was even a possibility. But the main point is that it got factored into the possibilities in that very short window very quickly. But the question is not, once that happened, was not that whether rates were going to be cut or not, although there was some question mark as to whether it be 25 or 50 basis points. I was going for 50 basis points because I thought they'd want to be aggressive in the first move. The next question is this the end of the rate cut cycle, or are they going to do more? And I think the way the market is responding, they're certainly expecting to do another perhaps 25 or maybe even 50. And we'll see what the data looks like in the coming weeks. But as far as the markets or the charts are looking, I think there's a very good chance we're going to see another 50, which would be incredible and set us up for the elections in November. If they do that in October, the economy should hopefully be pumping, and it will obviously be a political thing because it will help the incumbents stay in. As I've said before, I'm not really interested in politics. I think it's all, it's a bunch of sort of egotistical people telling us sort of half truths about what's really going on, but that's the nature of politics. I prefer the markets because at least I know where I stand with them and I can see what the truth is, and the truth to me is what's going on in the charts. But the main point is that even before the rate cut, I was looking for the equity markets to go higher, and I think I was saying last week that this would be heading up into a new all-time high as far as the Dow Jones is concerned, and it would head towards 42,000, which it's hit, and maybe 44,000 on an extended move. So that's doing that. We've got the Dow Jones Transportation, which isn't doing a whole lot. It's just in this range, but I think that's going to break out possibly before the end of the year. NASDAQ, even that is going for a new high. Remember, this is in the backdrop of everybody talking about a crash and how the market's going to crash lower, but it hasn't. It's gone up. S&P 500 pinned to highs, even though sentiment is really negative. So that looks like it's going to go further up. European market's doing very well. I'm not going to cover that. The important moves that we've seen this week or from the last week are the Hong Kong market, Hong Kong and Chinese market. Remember, I was saying that these are crucial to a big move in the Asian region that will see money pump into crypto later on. And there are lots of hedge funds who are short China because they say there's deflation. By proxy, Hong Kong will be affected by China. And we just saw a massive move up. And that's really caught out a lot of people. But I've been expecting a base here for some time. On actually on the Chinese market, it was on the 5th, around the 5th of February. It sort of started its move up. It was basing just before, but it's made a first leg up, and then it's corrected. That correction, to be fair, was quite big. But look at this breakout. It's massive. So it's almost like the Chinese have said, well, if the dollar's going to weaken against our currency, which will effectively undermine our competitive advantage, because they want the renminbi to be weak. If you're going to weaken the dollar, which the dollar is weakening, and we're going to come to that, what we'll do is we'll drop interest rates and we'll boost our economy. Now, I actually don't even know what the news is behind this move, but there's definitely something they've said or done to push this up like this in such a huge rally that's taken out the sort of bear market move of quite a few prior bars. So the Asian region moving up like this, for me, is a really important cog in the bull market wheel that will run into overflow, if you like, into the crypto markets. It's already starting to do that. Now, the big call that Chris was asking about last week, and we constantly look at, and it's really important, is the dollar index. And that's still pressing this 100 level. It's massive level. So it's not surprising that it's just pressing it and sitting on it, because there's a lot of people who are just buying it because they think it's too low, because they're still caught up in this range-bound momentum. And one of the biggest factors that investors have to deal with is a change in what's called market dynamics. And what can catch them out is when the market goes from such a solid range, a reliable inverted commas range, that goes into a trend. And I think what this is going to do is you're going to see a lot of buying here, which is why it's just sort of hanging around this level. This is a really good technical pattern, and I think it's going to drop down to this 99.6 level and just go through it really hard. So it wouldn't surprise me if we're trading down at 97.5 within the next week. But you know, that's pretty aggressive, so it might take a couple of weeks. And I was just looking at the schedule of releases for CPI, and to see what might mark the event. And obviously US CPI, being an inflationary measure, is one that the markets are really sensitive to, as well as non-farm payrolls. So we've got non-farm payrolls will be obviously next month's non-farm payrolls. So I don't know what the exact date would be. I'd have to have a look. But we would have September's CPI number coming out on October the 10th. So October the 10th, I would earmark that day for perhaps an aggressive move. We'll see what the data is there. But having looked at the way the bond market is responding, it's looking like they're not seeing the end of the rate cutting cycle just yet. So we could see more, and that would explain why equity markets want to go higher, and it would explain why this sort of short-term bounce in the dollar is unlikely to stick and will probably continue to go to the downside. So we've got more to come from the risk on trade. Obviously, we've got Bitcoin still in its range, so it's not broken out yet. We can have a look at that in just a moment. But the big headlines for me are moves in China, Actually, I wanted to show you, let me just show you before we move on, the chart of the yuan renminbi currency, so you can see exactly what's going on there. So this is the Chinese yuan renminbi, and it is strengthening against the US dollar. You see how it's going down here? Now, the weaker this is, the cheaper it is for Chinese goods to be sold abroad. So, especially to America, right? So, if the renminbi goes up in value, that makes their goods more expensive, and therefore it affects the economy. They effectively want to produce their way, export their way out of deflation. So they really don't want their currency to be strong. They want it to be weak to encourage buying from America. So the fact that this is going down will force the Chinese authorities' hand, I believe, to pump prime their economy, either cutting rates or pumping more money in, which they have got the ability to do. They're not in as much debt as the US and other European central banks. They have got the ability to pump money into the system. It's just a question of whether they do it or not. So I think that's what's causing this other move, which is actually really good for everybody in a way, because it means there's a synchronization of equity markets to the upside, which is also a good sign for it being sustainable in the sort of near term. And it also, more money there it can't be a bad thing for crypto, as far as I can see. There's just be more opportunities for companies, more extra money to invest in crypto projects. So the more the merrier is the way I see it. So Japan has been talked about a lot because it was the Japanese carry trade that caused the big sell-off on August the 5th. And if you remember that, from that bounce or from that day, everybody was extremely bearish, looking for a crash and looking for the markets to continue lower. And even on this show, I was asked a couple of times whether I was still bullish. And you can see how the sentiment can change dramatically in just a few weeks, when the markets are just sort of carrying on their merry way and doing kind of what they were always scheduled to do, really, or had a good probability of doing. I mean, we can't know the future 100%, but we can have a good sort of stab at what I think it will do. And there have been some good probability trades out there, which I should actually just update on one thing that I mentioned I think it was 2 weeks ago, when I said that with regard to one particular favorite here, of the channel with OMI, I said that I would take a punt at buying it with a stop loss just below the low of the day, or the low of this session, which is around here, which it's actually triggered. So I am effectively out of that trade because it's responded negatively to what I think is good positive news. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to turn around, but technically I couldn't really justify it that much. It was more an inkling that certain pressured altcoins would turn around, and some have. Unfortunately, this one hasn't. But we can revisit that another day when it's showing some signs, or whenever you guys want to look at it. But with regard to the bigger macro picture, I still think it's very supportive of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrencies in general. And as we're now seeing, certain altcoins are actually starting to bubble up, and that's a really good sign.
Yeah, it is a good sign. Yeah, Economi's still been going down, and some people are devastatingly worried. I think it keeps getting cheaper. I hope Economy keeps going down while some of my other positions go up, because that way I can buy more OMI for cheap. But let's take a look at Bitcoin and ETH, and then we have a lot of larger market caps. Mostly larger market caps have been leading the way. We're going to look at a bunch that have pumped, some of them tremendously, as money comes into the market. Now, often when money comes in the market, it flows first into Bitcoin, and then the larger alt caps, and then in the smaller caps. We're seeing some of it go into Bitcoin, but we're seeing a lot of it go into some of these larger alt caps.
Yeah. So a quick look at Bitcoin. I think this range is putting a lot of investors to sleep, and it's taking them out, and they've sold it, and they've said that's it. And we mentioned the sentiment a few times on the show, and how people think that that's it, even though it's trading around 50 to 60,000. how could the trend be over when it's still hanging on to quite a good percentage of the rally that we've seen since November 22, the FTX lows. So sentiment wise, things aren't adding up, which is great because it means that the market isn't long. And if the market isn't long, then the path of least resistance is a move to the upside. So we're gearing up for that potentially. There's a lot of overhead resistance, but it's looking good. It's pressuring up. We've got the weakening dollar. We've got, the other thing I should mention is how gold and silver, again, two things that we've mentioned on the show many times, are just powering ahead. And that is because people are getting worried about holding dollars. So if they're worried about holding dollars, where are they going to put their money? At some point, they're going to say, gold's too expensive. I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. So gold and silver, look at silver pressing this resistance high here. And when that breaks out, it's going to move up again. So there's a lot of activity in precious metals that is pointing towards a potential move in Bitcoin and ETH. So this range, I think, has got a higher probability of resolving as a breakout to the upside. And it's been in this range so long, it is frustrating. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But the market has to trend at some point. And the question is, will that trend be a big move to the downside, which is what the majority are expecting, or will it be a trend to the upside, which few are expecting? Usually, contrary opinion theory will be correct. In other words, what most people are not expecting is what's likely to happen. And it's almost like what feels the most unlikely. And so, therefore, this could really start to develop in the next few weeks, and especially if there's a potential another 50 basis points to come off US rates, we could be through 70,000 before the end of October. So let's see. I mean, that's not saying definitely. I'm just saying that is a possibility if we get some weak numbers. But I do think longer term that's going to happen anyway. So even if we stay in this range until the end of the year, it for me is just a consolidation before the market goes up a lot. As far as ETH goes, it is still hovering below this 2817 massive support and resistance level, but this could well be a base. It's had its panic. This is the August 5th panic that we've seen in so many different markets, altcoins, equities, everywhere, and others have just recovered much quicker than this has. But that doesn't mean that this won't recover. It just means it's lagging. And from a technical point of view, we usually like to go with strength. So whatever's leading the way up, we would like to go with that. And then there is a bit of a rotation out of the leaders into the laggers, and then they can just sort of play catch up, like pulling a rubber band and a brick, and then it suddenly moves, the analogy we've used before. So this really needs to break 2817 before I could justify it being in a base. So Bitcoin definitely looks better. But if I was just looking at this in isolation, I'd say it's still a risk on play, and we're seeing some really good risk on macro themes that should push it higher. So on balance, I'd be bullish, but I would rather see it through this 2817 just to confirm that the market is based out.
Yeah, it's funny how ETH has been performing so poorly versus Bitcoin, but it's showing some signs of life. Let's take a look at some of these altcoins. Some of them are really popping off, and I'm curious whether it continues or just some initial excitement coming in. I guess we're going to find out, but some of these moves are quite big moves. Big moves like this we haven't seen in quite a while, and that's why they're so intriguing.
Yeah, sure. There is a question from Devo Kyle that I thought was quite interesting. Would it be okay to answer that?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
question just very quickly? So you're asking when is the blow off top? Any guesses? It's a good question. Are you talking about the equity markets or the markets in general or cryptocurrencies? The answer in many ways is actually the same. Not yet, and we'll know it when we see it, is kind of the answer. So given that the big blow off is likely to happen when everybody's really, really bullish, I think that we're still at least 6 months away, or potentially over 6 months away. So we have to wait and see.
Usually we have some kind of ramp up to it, that it builds momentum and builds momentum, builds momentum, and then it just goes crazy. And some of that comes through waves of FOMO, I think, is part of what causes it. Some people invest and then things go up for them, and then they tell their friends, and more people with fresh money come in, and then it goes up, and they tell their friends, and then like it just goes absolutely crazy. But yeah, like the answer, Paul, not yet.
Yeah,
we
not
aren't
yet.
there yet.
No,
Yeah.
I mean with crypto, there's still, I think, too much bearish sentiment out there. And I guess you guys would know from how you feel and how people you talk to feel about it, and a really good indicator for guys like us, right? Because we're closer to the market. A really good indicator is how many stories there are in mainstream media. So if we take newspapers, radio, all that kind of stuff, areas where they don't normally talk about cryptocurrencies, how many stories and how many sort of rappers are talking about it, how many singers are talking about it, how many people in the general public, influencers, whatever it might be, but who aren't involved in this area are now talking about it. And what I will predict is when we see the high, we will see a major figure, say Taylor Swift, could be Taylor Swift actually. We could see Taylor Swift wanting to be paid for her appearances in Bitcoin, and that will be the sign that we're very close to the top. So look out for something like that. If you see something like that, you got to let us know.
Right.
I might
That's a
miss
really
it.
good point. There was several last time when Bitcoin was doing really, really, really well. In other words, we were close or right at that blow off top. I remember several sports figures asking to be paid in Bitcoin.
There we go.
So when Taylor Swift asks to be paid in Bitcoin, then we know we're in the blow off top.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've hopefully got a little way to go before then.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Let's take a look first at SEI.
Right. So SEI, what exactly is SEI? Because there's a few that came up and I was like, which one is it?
It is SEI.
It's just SEI.
Their ticker and their name.
Oh, okay. So I'll put it in CoinGecko. Oh, here we go. So, right. So we've got a fairly decent chart. Yes, very nice. Okay, so this is really interesting. So we've got some history going back September, October, November. So we've got a repeat in terms of when it based out last time, because it based out sort of September, October into November and accelerated up. So we're seeing a repeat September, on an annual anniversary. Now, this is making a base. This has already made a base. So this trigger through this high at 36 cents for me is a buy signal. It's made a base and it's triggered the buy, and that effectively ends this bearish trend. There is resistance, as you can see on this part, around 41 cents, which it is possible if it hits there and reverses, we get some form of larger base. So if it sort of consolidates, comes down and goes back up again, we might have an inverse head and shoulders. But as it stands now, from this point, anywhere along here, I would have been bearish, wouldn't want to touch it. There were some signs with it going sideways, matching all those lows. I'm trying to use this cursor, and as you know, this cursor doesn't work very well with this, this thing popping up all the time. But if you look at those lows, you can see how they're all matched on the right hand side, and then we got this big green bar or candle that confirms that that's a base. So it doesn't, none of this again is 100% guaranteed because nothing is in the markets, but probability says that this is basing and it should move higher from here. So for me, without knowing anything about it, and obviously there'd have to be some due diligence on any coin, I would say it's a buy, just based on the technicals. So a couple of things I like is that it has had the downward trend, and the advantage of that is it's got something to recover. So it's got something to accelerate back into. And also it seems to have sort of dealt with all the bearishness from August 5th. See, we keep seeing that date and the panics that happen. That was the spike lows. So somebody came in and bought it, hoovered up those lows because they're seeing something really positive in the future. And now it's responding to that positivity. So I think this is a really interesting chart. And for me, I would say at this stage, it's a buy.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. I'm going to give a little bit of fundamentals behind SEI. So one of the first things I look at when I'm evaluating a project and how interested I am, I want to look at the length of their token in circulation. So it's been out for a little over a year. I like to see longer. That means more of their token is vested, usually with longer. But we do see this nice pattern. It caused some really good momentum late December, peaking out in March, and then it's corrected down, and we see these nice, smoother movements. Interesting. Now, I then usually look at the exchanges it's on. Binance, which means it's accessible for most of the world outside of the US. Coinbase means it's easily accessible within the US, so it's got global access. I look at the market cap. The market cap is 1.6 billion. And the fully diluted market cap is about 3x of that. So about a third of their tokens are in circulation. Here on CoinMarketCap, it shows us where the token vesting is. So there's still a lot of token vesting going on pretty regularly. The tokens are coming in circulation. So right now we're at about 4 billion, not quite in circulation. And over the next year and a half, we're going to have how many? What's that at? Maybe 5.5 billion. So still over the next 9 months, about 1.5 billion come into circulation. Okay, that's not good. It's not terrible. A little bit about SEI. It's the first sector-specific layer 1 blockchain specialized for trading to give exchanges an unfair advantage. Decentralized exchanges are the killer apps of crypto. They are everywhere, spanning much further than just AMMs and order books. DEXs are just as prevalent across NFTs and gaming as well. One of the primary use cases of NFTs today is trading them on the NFT marketplace. So they're really focused around having DEXs on their chain. That's interesting. So I'm not certain what I think about their narrative other than cool, like DEX. They're built for DEXs, but is everyone going to move their chain and their tokens over to SEI just for DEX access? I don't know. I can't say I love that narrative, but still, like, that narrative is pumped. And what is amazing in a bigger bull run is that often everything pumps, and especially in certain things. So this is kind of a DeFi narrative. And we've seen it blast off in the last day. It's up what? From 37 cents to 47 cents. So it's blasted up considerably, up 24% in one day. Awesome. For me, it's a wait. I can't say I love their narrative. I'm looking for underpriced deals. I like that it's pumped and it's showing some signs of life. And I like the trading pattern on it. It's quite smooth. So there is some people interested in this, and there's some volume on it, and Coinbase listed it. So maybe there's some AMAs I need to watch with the founders to really wrap my mind around the greater narrative to see what is special about this, because somebody thinks it's special. All right, let's take a look. Our next one we want to look at is Bittensor.
Yeah. Here we go. That's here. Amazing chart. Look at this. I mean, did we look at this before? I hope so. I really do, because this is such a beautiful pattern. This is what I really go for. This is where I start sort of banging the table, as it were. Big base here, left shoulder head, right shoulder. This is called an inverse head and shoulders. End of a bear market move, completely matched resistance, almost matched in exactly the same way. Look, it's almost a mirror image of how that made a top there with a spike and then went down, went down there, made a spike, and matched the previous level. And it honestly, you could put a mirror there and it would look the same. It gave plenty of warning that it was going up and heading towards the 360 trigger as volume was going up. And then it broke it really cleanly. I seem to remember that we were talking about this as it was making this base, but I could be wrong. I know we look at it a lot, and but I just have this vague recollection of this setup. Now it's gone a long way. That's a lot of green in one go. I like that, but at some point it has to take a breather and a pullback, and it's doing that against what was the topping formation all the way back here. And so there are people who've held it all the way down, and as soon as it comes back to their sort of break even point, they're going to let go. And that's why we're seeing a little bit of volatility and turbulence at this current level, but not enough to change the trend. So the headline for me is that this is a buy still, but I would expect a pullback. And the problem with buying it so late into this trend is it's very difficult to get a risk on a good place where you've got good risk against reward. And what I mean by that is if I'm buying it at 560, I've got to think, well, what's a reasonable stop out point for it? And realistically, 50% of this range is reasonable. So how much capital am I willing to risk? It's always the amount of capital and how much you're willing to lose on the trade against the potential gain. So with it trading close to a trigger level like this, technically we would look to buy the breakout and we could have a relatively tight stop and then move that to break even and just sit pretty whilst it's in the upward trend. But here, when it's approaching volatility, it's a little harder to find a level like that. But I can't justify shorting anything like this either, because it is going up and it's doing it really smoothly. So part of doing the analysis is what's leading the way, and what leads the way tends to continue to lead the way. So it is a buy, but I would just have to think carefully about where I might put some stops. Perhaps below 440, I think is reasonable, but it is still quite far away from the price action. So I might put that initially and then try and tighten that up. But ultimately, I'm looking for 750 and beyond. And I think that's reasonable. And it's got some good history as well. So really interesting. Would have loved to have picked it up or chatted just before that breakout.
Right.
But, can't have everything.
Yeah, because it broke solidly through that resistance. And yeah, it kept going up. So when it broke above like 370, it just kept going off to the races.
Did we look at it before?
On. It's quite bright, so shades are coming on. What were you saying?
Sorry. I was just saying, did we look at it relatively recently? Am I thinking,
No.
or am I conflating it? Okay.
No. Yeah, it was different ones. A little bit, some fundamentals behind Bittensor, and it might give us some clues as to narratives of what narratives might run soon. So this is one of the highest pumping ones today, and it ran up massively. So it's number 25 on CoinMarketCap now. That is a crazy move. But essentially, it more than doubled since right here. So it leapfrogged a whole bunch of things on CoinMarketCap. So a little bit about them. First of all, like I said before, I like to check out the length that they've been available on the market. So that goes back to 2023. So earlier, like March 2023, they've been trading since then. Price was down here at $34. So it's about 15x up from there. It pumped with the AI narrative pump, and we're going to see that Bittensor is in the AI narrative. maybe that means the AI narrative is getting ready to really rock and roll again. Bittensor is an open source protocol that powers a decentralized blockchain-based machine learning network. In other words, AI. Machine learning models train collaboratively and are rewarded in tau according to the informational value they offer the collective. Tau also grants external access, allowing users to extract information from the network while tuning its activities to their needs. Okay, so an interesting idea of intersecting blockchain technology and machine learning. It is designed as a decentralized network that fundamentally changes how artificial intelligence is developed, shared, and monetized. It'll be interesting to see if this model will work, but we see a lot of focus on AI, and AI is getting very powerful. AI and crypto integration, well, I don't know if a blockchain-based machine learning program ultimately is part of the future. Maybe it isn't, maybe it isn't. But there's a lot of people speculating on it just because it's an AI place that they can put some of their funds. So watch for more AI projects to run. That's what this is suggesting, that money's probably going to come into AI again in crypto. Now, my personal feelings is a lot of the projects, AI projects in the crypto space, aren't going to survive long term. But that doesn't mean they can't pump this bull market and can't pump tremendously. So I do tend to like to invest in things that I believe have long-term future and have great ability to pump this coming bull market. So I'm not in a lot of AI projects, but there's other people that they're in, AI, they're going all in on that. Cool. All right, let's, for me on the chart, the market cap's too high for me to be interested. 4.1 million. It's doubled here. I'm not buying in at this point. Like I've shared before, I'm not in these higher cap projects. I'm in ones that are cheaper. Now, overall, would this be a buy? It would if it corrects back some and gives me a good entry point. It's not a good entry point there. So if I were buying higher cap coins, then maybe I would look at this if it corrected backwards and gave me a good entry point. So for now, both, it's a wait because I don't buy such high market cap projects. Number two, it's not a good entry point. But interesting to see it running so hard. A lot of people are believing in this narrative. So keep an eye on it. All right. Let's take a look at one of our next ones, which is Aptos.
Aptos definitely rings a bell. Tell me that we have looked at that recently.
Yeah. You got the chart painted in there and like the breakout line.
Yeah. Again, similar trade. We got the left shoulder, we got the head, we got the right shoulder. So in other words, a base. So without getting too technical about actual names, all that's saying is that the market has consolidated with probably a lot of bearish sentiment. And then it's broken the top of its range with a little cherry on top, which is this spike down here. So that spike and panic. If we were to put the market or the chart like that, right, looking at that, I would never buy that. So I will never buy the low because I don't know where the low is. But when the market consolidates for a decent period of time and then breaks over resistance, then I have a technical justification for buying it because now it's moving in the positive direction. So I want to go with the trend. That's a really nice little short-term pan that could end up being what's called a flag or pennant and see another squeeze up towards this sort of 10 area, which is psychological resistance. There's a little bit before there, just at 9.6, but I think around $10 is where it will go next. So headline for me is that this is a base. It's already broken out. It's closer to its breakout point, which is at 7.5, than obviously the Bittensor, which has gone much further. But it's still, from a technical point of view, a good risk reward play at $8 with a stop somewhere down at 6.8 or somewhere like that. So for me, it's a buy.
Cool. Let's get into some fundamentals of Aptos. So I'm here, CoinMarketCap, and I like their information. I really like that a lot of these projects show their token investing right on CoinMarketCap now. Really gives me a good idea of what's going on with their token behind the scenes, because sometimes there's some hidden things that'll wreck you. For example, if you were invested here and all of a sudden massive tokens start unlocking, that often correlates to a dump in the price and you get worked over as an investor. It really hurts to see that when you could have just waited. So that started happening November 3rd, 2023 and November 3rd, 2023. It had been going up and it flattened out the price for a while. Now it did continue running through March with AI projects. Now let's see what Aptos is. Aptos is a layer 1 proof of stake blockchain that employs a novel smart contract programming language called Move, a Rust-based programming language that was independently developed by Meta, formerly Facebook's DM blockchain engineers. Aptos' vision is a blockchain that brings mainstream adoption to Web3 and empowers the ecosystem of dApps to solve real-world user problems. Proof of stake blockchain can achieve a theoretical transaction output of over 150,000 transactions per second through parallel execution. So that's much faster TPS than a lot of the layer 1 blockchains out there. See, in March 2022, Aptos raised $200 million in seed round funded by venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz. Okay, so they have some big heavy hitters in their early rounds: Animoca Brands, Jump Crypto, Franklin Templeton. Okay, wow. So they raised another $200 million in a Series A round. So well funded. Interesting. So definitely a higher market cap project. How many of their tokens are in circulation? Well, you still see a lot of token investing coming up, but this chart looks pretty steep, but the timeline is actually quite drawn out. So from now till, say, mid next year, it looks like about 20% more tokens come into circulation than what's already out there. So that's not wonderful. That's not terrible either. Okay. So looking overall on the log scale, yeah, they pulled back quite heavily and they might be ready to break out more. So again, this is a higher market cap project, and I don't have anything against higher market cap projects in that they just have less chance, that they're less risk. Like a well-funded project like Aptos is probably not going to go out of business and close their doors, but they're probably not going to experience a 100 to 400x either. 100x on this would take it to a $400 billion market cap. So that's not likely to happen. A lot of the stuff that I look for has potential to do 100x or even greater, but could also fail. So they're just higher risk, higher reward. So I'm not buying Aptos. I do like where it's at, though, on this chart. For me, it would just be a small buy. If I were buying large cap coins, I'd probably do a small buy in Aptos. All right, let's take a look next at IMX. Now, IMX is one that I frequently held in my portfolio, and it now is a higher cap altcoin than what it has been, but it got pretty cheap there for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have discussed this a few times, I think fairly recently as well. And I think we talked about the August 5th spike and how it made this pattern where it sort of rallied, came back for a retest. It's now rallied again, made a base. So the base was triggered around $1.53, and it's tapping on this resistance here, which is at 175. So it's gone through it and it's coming back just to sit on top of it. But the headline here was that this was basing out, especially once it's broken this downward trend line. It had this first phase, which when it was moving up here, I was bullish. I really did think that this was extending and it was ready to go. Then it topped out, got some topping out signs, but the buy signals came in around here and used that as support. So that was a trend extension that was just a little bit early for the cycle. That retracement also quite a lot bigger than I would have expected. You know, I would have expected it to hold over this $1.59, and it was a little concerning when it went much lower than that. But having said that, it is now showing signs again of strength, which is great, and it's also got some margin from its low, which is down at 0.44 and all the way down here at 0.37, 378 seems to be the low of this overall chart. So it is actually printing slightly higher lows on the basis as well, which is a good sign. So again, for me, from a technical point of view, it's triggered its base, broken its trend line. It's done the tripwires that it needs to do to show it's ending this bear market with the macro scene as well. When behind it, this should have further upside. So for me, it would be a buy, but I can see it being a little sticky around this 175 area just because that was a key level on the way down and there should be some supply around it. But once it's shaken that off, the trend should smooth out to the upside.
So I like Immutable X a lot. They're in the gaming narrative. So they're a blockchain in the gaming narrative and digital collectibles narrative. I really liked it when the price hit back here and it was down this low. I was calling it a massively underpriced token, that it was crazy that it ever hit this low on a fundamental level, and that I couldn't tell, especially where the chart was going, if it would keep going down. But I said anything below 50 cents and even below 60 cents is just the most amazing price. And you're just like, it's like walking into the store and like everything's on clearance. So it was an amazing price. And unfortunately, it didn't stay there for very long. But I know many of you had the opportunity to pick some up while it was dirt cheap. And then it's since run up, and it ran all the way up to 370 and then did a nice pullback. Again, this is outside the parameters of what I'm buying. Its market cap is now much higher than it was down here. But if I were holding all blue chips and higher altcoins, because I just didn't need as high of gains, when you have massive funds, or you're not as risky as what my risk profile is, you're okay with not getting as big of gains because you're also investing in things that are in less risk of going to zero. And Immutable X is pretty stabilized. It has some big backers behind it. The risk that it goes to zero is much lower than a lot of the stuff I invest in. But it also has such a high market cap. Can it go 100x from here? Probably not from here. So if it does a 20x or a 30x or a 40x from here, that's absolutely amazing. And some people are completely okay with that. Imagine you're investing, $50 million. You're going to be really cautious on what you're going to put that money into, because you don't want things that go to zero. And you're okay if it just goes like a 20x from here, because then that takes $50 million to $1 billion. When you've got $1,000 and you throw it in here, sometimes you're willing to have a higher risk tolerance, because if it goes 20x and turns into $20,000, that's cool. That's definitely not life-changing. That is pretty good versus what a lot of the other alternatives would be in like other markets. But that's why I'm in riskier stuff during this phase of the bull market, because in an upward trend, the riskier stuff can sometimes just massively outperform. Although when things do turn around, that riskier stuff is going to pull back more than something more stabilized than Immutable X. So I like this one a lot. If I were buying blue chips, I'd be buying it. I do like this price. Like, it's signal the turn back around. It's heading back up. So the chart looks good. It gets a buy from me as far as a rating. Also, we are live. Shout out to Money May All Day was the first one in today. Ivor said, good day. Just bought some more Definity. Good job, brother. Kevin jumping in, as always, from Lakeland, Florida. Bill Gardner says, the man, the myth, the legend. Boo saying,
well, that's what I'd say about Bill Gardner.
Yeah, I know. We love Bill Gardner. Had a chance to get to meet him and have him on a joint show with Randy and Doctor of Stuff. And that was a lot of fun. talking with Bill Gardner, sharp guy. Rainmakers, thanks for being here, Jay and Paul. Bumper, please. We will add bumper to the list. What's happening, Jay and Paul? Hoping for DEVVE to drop. Need more. Johnny, I love the way you think. Let's see. Booth, giving us the Rainmaker symbol. Justin, jumping in. Good morning. Cody saying pop in to give you a like and a share. Guacamole on Solana. What? GFAL. We'll take a look at GFAL. Hey, team, I'm late to the party. What did I miss in summary? These things are saved, so at the very end, you can just go back and watch it. All right. Let's go to GALA. So another blockchain gaming space project. Let's see what their token is doing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, that a lot of these picks are all buys from me from a technical point of view. This is another one. This is made a base. We've got a double bottom pattern, which is basically like a W, where you makes a low, rallies, makes another low, and then breaks through the trigger at 2.2 cents. So it's just on it now, just going through now. So I would expect this from a probability point of view. Remember, there's no guarantees, to go higher, start to squeeze, and I can also draw in a trend line across here, which will be my stop loss to give it some space. We've got that August 5th spike down as well to give us a bit of panic low margin to show what the worst case scenario will be when sentiment is really negative. And placing a stop that's rising below here would be a technical strategy. Yeah, so that's all I can say. It's got some good history as well. And, there's been support around this level before. So it's been close to that low, which I think we talked about. And when markets do that, it's always a bit worrying from a long-term perspective as to whether it's going to go through. But it's held. And as I say, I like the fact that it's got some history, because the longer the history, the more established it's all round. It's had more chance to get decent volumes traded, and it's still around and still trading. So all those things are good, and it's potentially an early adopter into whatever area it's looking at. To be honest, I can't remember what GALA does, but I'm sure we're just about to find out. But for me, from a technical point of view, it's a buy.
Awesome. Let me see. Where is the button for that? There we go. All right. So I just pulling up some information on GALA. Now, I'm not extremely bullish on their future unless they start making better gaming decisions, though they were one of the first players in blockchain gaming. And we saw that reflected in the last bull market where their price went up incredibly. So it had been trading at 0.02 cents in December 2020, 0.02 cents. And it went all the way up to 71 cents reflected here. It probably went higher than what it's showing here. Holy cow. What an amazing run. And some people that had some GALA nodes made incredible money, like life-changing money. That per GALA node in the early days, you could buy them for like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. Later, the price of those nodes to buy them went into the $300,000 range. And they would print off tokens every month if you were running the node for over 6 hours. So at one point, those GALA nodes were earning, like $10,000 a month worth of tokens or more. I can't even imagine what it was when it went up to 71 cents. But it's pulled all the way back down to 2.2 cents. Now, one of the challenges that I have is they don't really have a game that has a good mechanism. So they've been working on one for a while, but I don't know. Eric Schirmeyer, who is one of the founders, he's the one with the gaming background. He determines the direction of the games. He's made some interesting choices on funding mechanisms for the game and the economics behind them that I don't like the choices that he made. They released a game called Spider Tanks, and you could buy these NFTs for like several $100s up to like $12,000 for a legendary one. And that increased the number of tokens that you would get for playing the game. But the economics behind paying $12,000 for this NFT never worked out at all for those who bought it. And you really just shot your foot off if you invested in their NFTs. And that was during the bull run. So it's not like, it was during the bear market correction. So they've done a lot of things that I just think have bad economics behind them. And so I just don't have trust in investing in the token behind this. There's other gaming projects that I think are better positioned to do well. And so will GALA do well in the coming bull run? Probably. It'll probably do well because everything's going to go up. And if it goes up to its previous high, that's about a 35x. So there's still plenty of room for it to do well. It's just the question I ask is it going to do as well as some of the other gaming things that I'm looking at? And my thought on that answer is probably not. And that's my thought for my own investment. That's my own analysis. Now, I was actually Saturday in meeting with a good friend from 15 years ago, and we were actually staying at the cabin, or we're at the cabin of one of the co-founders of GALA, funny enough, on Saturday, and talking about some projects that are using a mechanism similar to how GALA's nodes worked. So GALA was on my mind all weekend, and just kind of how it's gone and where it's going and where it's going to end up. So they absolutely crushed it here. I had a friend get in on the nodes at a pre-sale price that was crazy, crazy low. And the amount of profit to be made from that price was just crazy. But I think the pre-sale of the nodes, that sale went on in like 2018. So you had to have some real vision to be buying GALA nodes back then. Like, the nodes weren't operational. It was just a plan. And one of the co-founders, Wright Thurston, was actually one of the biggest Bitcoin miners in all of North America. And he's the one that came, and figured out the nodes and running the nodes and how that would work. And Eric Schurmeyer was more on the gaming side of things. All right. But Eric Schurmeyer's decisions on the economics behind the gaming, that's what I'm very concerned about. I'm very concerned about some of the decisions Eric's been making for GALA, and that's why I just have a hard time investing in it. So, sorry, here's my screen with GALA going way, way up to here and then way, way back here. It is tradable on most marketplaces. I don't see it on a US level exchange, but I imagine you can get it on the DEXs pretty easy. I haven't held GALA in a while. When GALA was making some weird decisions during the bear market, I swapped into some other tokens. Their market cap is under $1 billion. Overall, it's just, for me, it's just a sell because I would roll it into other things that I just think have higher potential. Reagan Mullis, wife changing gains incoming. Hell yes. A lot of these are buys from Paul. I wonder if that's indicative of the market as a whole. Things are moving up despite the horrible market. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
Your take on Aerodrome Finance would be interesting, as it's making its breakout currently. I will flag that and we'll take a look at that. All right, let's take a look at OMI, which we did ever so briefly. And OMI's price is getting crushed, which most people get completely frustrated by.
Yeah, sorry, I did throw that in right at the start of the show because I hadn't seen the full, list of projects that we were going to look at this week. So apologies that I did put that in right at the start.
Oh, that's no problem at all. We already know what your answer is on it.
Yeah, I just wanted to update that because, I was having a little punt on it, making a base. But for the reasons that Chris is talking about, there are some projects that have been unloved, and there are plenty of those out there that have been making bases and turning around. And with all the macro situation coming to a head, and really pushing some positive things into the market, I thought we might see a response here. So that was why, and we are seeing some moves. So it is possible that things can turn around quickly, which is why it's really important in this phase to be keeping an eye out on lots of things, even the things that aren't looking great right now, because a week is now going to be a long time in this more active market. But as far as this chart goes, the trend, as you can see, is still down, and it did consolidate for a little bit, but the August low was here, the panic low, and it actually didn't respond that badly to it. Although it was an all-time low on the chart, it wasn't a complete collapse, which is what I would have expected to see. And that's why I was like a little bit thinking saturation was coming in to the selling and it was getting ready to turn around. Sadly, that wasn't the case. It just went sideways, and it's still printing lower highs. You can see these highs are still lower, and it's now pushed into a new all-time low. So for me, on a technical point of view, yeah, it's definitely it's got to be a wait until it can show some strength. So I think I'm going to be a little more cautious on the next move unless we see something like a very strong candle, green candle, that takes out this sort of area here. So if it did a sharp sudden move up and took this area out, then I think it goes back into the potential buy. But for the moment, it's not done that, so I have to wait.
All right. So this has been one that I've been dollar cost averaging in for a while now, and I continue to dollar cost average in. And I get excited when it gets cheaper because my interest in this project is fundamental. So I believe that this project is in a narrative that's going to go ballistic at some point this bull market. And when it does, then the price is going to go ballistic. So that's what I'm waiting for, and that's what I'm looking for. But I suspected based on the chart that it would break down from this pattern, and it did. And it did almost by the amount that I have drawn out here. But it might still have further that it comes down. And this is just given an amazing price for people to pick up super cheap. I don't know what I just did there, but I just lost the chart. There we go. And I like buying cheap as an investor. So this is one that, for my own hopes and aspirations, for my own investment dollars, I hope from here does over 100x. This is one I like. I think they are the premier player in the digital collectibles narrative, like in first place, in my opinion. And I think the digital collectibles narrative at some point this bull market is really going to hit hard. And when it does, being the number one brand and having the top intellectual property in the digital collectible space, I expect that this will totally take off and the trajectory will reverse and it will go really high the other way. Now, is it guaranteed to do that? Well, we're in the investment space. There aren't guarantees in this space. It's risk versus reward, and we're taking risks so that if it goes well for us, we can experience that reward. And so there are no guarantees in any investment space. We're just taking risk versus reward. And some people say, but Rain, what are you talking about? There are guarantees in US treasuries. And it's like, well, the guarantee is good until it isn't. And at some point, it probably won't be guaranteed. And you'll find out that though there's a promise behind that guarantee, that promise doesn't always get delivered. Every fiat currency in the history of mankind has failed at a certain point. And probably that failure is closer than ever. So that there just really aren't guarantees in any investment space, even if there are promises behind it. At some point, whoever has made that promise may not be able to continue to meet that promise. So just realize in any investment space, there's no guarantees. You're just playing probabilities. And that's what I do. So I'm looking for, it's down here. It may even go lower. And if it does, I get even more excited and looking for really good upside. So I like to buy cheap, and this is still cheap and possibly even getting cheaper. That's amazing in my book. Cool. So for me, it's definitely a buy at this, and it's been a buy at even higher prices. So I like to identify ranges. And my personal opinion was anything below this range here at the 0.001 price was just an amazing, amazing buy. And it has gotten substantively cheaper than that. Cool. All right, let's take a look at DEVVE. So I don't know if I hit the buy button there, but there we go. And let's take a look at DEVVE.
So DEVVE, from being a solid downward trend, looks like we're seeing signs of life here. It's reversing out at the same rate. So the rate of decline against the rate of incline is similar. In fact, a little bit sharper on the upside, which is a good sign. Now, there's obviously a lot of supply on the way from people buying it on the way down to get through. So it's consolidating here, and the resistance is close to that. But break of a downward trend, solid move up. This could be a nice little consolidation, puts it on the buy list again. So for me, it is a buy. The only cautious element of this for me is that there isn't that much history, and it could be still in the low volume trading, and it could be influenced by a few big players, which again is an issue because you want the market to be very liquid, so no individual can sort of influence the price too much. So it's in the riskiest basket, if you like. But in terms of the price action, it's definitely showing signs of life, which is what we want. And the bigger the base, the more solid the rally that follows. And it's not had much of a base, so it's gone from down to straight up, and things can unravel quickly, which is why I'm being slightly cautious. But I also want to give it the benefit of the doubt because it is moving up and responding to positive, the positive macro scene in other markets. So given that not everything's doing that, this is one that I think is worth watching. So a cautious buy, I'd say, rather than a wait, is fair on this one. And definitely this downward trend has given its ending signals. So got to go with it, really.
Awesome. So full disclosure, I am very biased on DEVVE. I'm not only heavily invested in the token, but also invested in the company behind it. So yeah, I very much believe in this one. And there's a lot of reasons why I believe in it. Now, there's a lot of information I get as essentially a small owner in the company that isn't public yet, but it seems like they've had some conversations with some big people in the crypto space and some big people in the financial space recently. And I think some people got wind of those conversations. Now, those conversations haven't translated to anything yet, but those conversations went really, really well. And they're doing a lot of innovative things. Essentially, one of their big points is that they can do transactions per second that are just absolutely unreal. So back in 2016, they ran a benchmark on their transactions per second for their blockchain, and it benchmarked at 8 million transactions per second. So we were just looking at some other blockchains, and they had theoretical speeds of 150,000 per second. That's still substantially different than, say, 8 million transactions per second. And the reason that it matters is if you're going to build massive things on top of blockchain, you need much quicker speeds than most, even the current big blockchains that everyone is talking about, than what they can do. So right now, BlackRock is talking about building their tokenization of everything on ETH, or even an ETH layer 2, and they just can't do the transaction speeds necessary for that. A lot of where these businesses are going, what BlackRock is talking about is essentially enterprise level blockchains. Now, enterprise level blockchains this is so that big companies can like tokenize the assets that they oversee on the blockchain. They just need better speeds. They need faster finalization times and other things. And DEVVE is, gosh, the #1 enterprise blockchain out there that I've seen. I don't know anything that can really deliver on these kinds of speeds and the kinds of stuff that DEVVE's been doing. Now, what's funny is DEVVE took so long to actually launch a token and fund it that most of the world is still unaware of them. But they've been able to do these speeds since 2015 or 2016. They then took 4 years to build it on top of, or build the, essentially the integration with their blockchain using RESTful API, and which is essentially API calls that any web programmer knows how to make. And so any web programmer can actually speak the language necessary for their blockchain. And so it's a fundamental shift. So what the setup is that they can take Web 2 companies to Web 3 extremely easier than all the other blockchains out there. So that's why I'm such a big believer in DEVVE and what they're doing. The market cap is ridiculously low. Even their fully diluted market cap is ridiculously low, and it mostly has to do with an awareness problem. And a lot of times that is a big problem. You have this amazing project with amazing potential, and it doesn't do well till it hits massive awareness. But once it hits massive awareness, it launches to the top of CoinMarketCap. And that's something that I hope happens to DEVVE. I feel like they have the substance behind to merit that they could be at the top of CoinMarketCap, like in the top 10 or 15. And right now they're way, 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 way down the charts. And that's where price growth comes from. As you know, something climbs the charts, as well as when the market caps of everything start going up in the bigger bull run, that's where you can get some magnificent gains. So that's why I'm so heavily invested in this one. I am looking forward to it. Not only do they have enterprise blockchain, which is where a lot of the world is going, they also have a blockchain gaming division, and they launched Litcraft, which runs on the DEVVE blockchain. And Litcraft was rated by Cointelegraph as the #2 blockchain game out there. So they have lots of cool things going on. I'm a big believer in this. The price isn't as cheap as it was. That was a pretty dang good price for a while down here at 14 cents. And in the private Discord, I was telling everyone, oh my gosh, this price is so juicy. It's so amazing. And even on public videos, this price is so amazing. It won't stay here for forever. Has about a month and a half left of token vesting for early pre-sale investors. And a lot of those early pre-sale investors are cashing out their tokens as soon as they get them. And so that's been suppressing the price. But at some point, I feel like this price massively turns around, goes the other direction. This market cap is ridiculously low for the substance behind this project. So for me, it is 100% a buy, and just sad that it's still not at 14 cents. Cool. Let's take a look at some of the comments section. Let's see in order. We have Bumper.
Yeah. So Bumper, again, this is it's still languishing, unfortunately. The only positive I can say about it is that it's above its August 5th low. It did stage a rally from there, but that seems to have unwound. I'd like to see if it can hold in around current levels, obviously, because people are either long it or want to buy it. But I'm not saying it for that reason. I'm saying it from a technical reason, because then it would kind of print a higher low, and that will give us a good base to work from. And as we're seeing, lots of markets are turning around very quickly, even ones that are really bearish, as people go around and look for the laggards. And so I think it's worth, as I said before, keeping a very close eye on the market from now on, or on the markets. So at the moment, for me, it's definitely a wait. There isn't anything as yet for me to change my cautious view, but keep asking about it, because we should keep watching it.
Yeah, I'm excited about where Bumper's price is. So I like buying cheap as an investor that invests based on research and fundamentals of projects. If Bumper can get traction with what they do, then they have massive upside potential from here. Their market cap is abysmally low, which I like. Even their fully diluted market cap is still extremely cheap and extremely low. And if they get traction, the upside potential on this is massive. Essentially, it's a new way of thinking of protecting downside risk and hedging downside risk. And their use case is extremely attractive to me. Right now, the best way to provide downside hedging is using options and options trading. Well, Bumper innovates over that at being able to protect your downside protection at generally less money and less breakage between everything. So I like what they're doing. I wish Bumper was fully rolled out so that I could protect the downside risk using their software or using their system for a lot of the altcoins that I'm in. But it'll be a while before you probably have things set up to do the different altcoins that I'm in. Right now, you can provide downside protection on both ETH and Bitcoin. Cool. So as they continue to get traction, I expect their price will do really well. Now, DeFi hasn't been in the narrative for a while. When DeFi hits the narrative, I expect that Bumper will really get discovered and do incredibly well. Also, bullish news with Bumper. One of the things they're suffering from is just most people aren't aware of them. But one of the largest crypto channels in the crypto space is Coin Bureau. And Coin Bureau has reviewed their stuff and did a partnership with them, but also behind the scenes told me that that Guy really, really likes what they're doing. And Guy on Coin Bureau, I really like him. He's one of my favorite crypto influencers because I feel like he always shoots it, never shills. And so he's one of my favorite people in the crypto space. And he's really smart. And I wish he was an early investor in DeFi, and he wrapped his mind around it really early. And I was watching his videos on DeFi back just before the DeFi boom of June 2020. And I couldn't quite understand what was going on with it, even though he was leading the charge early on that, on what DeFi was doing. It was just a new change I was having a hard time understanding at the time. So he's really smart on DeFi, and he gets the vision from what I've heard of where Bumper is going and what they're doing. So I imagine when it gets some traction and people start focusing on DeFi, it's got some venues to get some good coverage and then fill in that awareness gap that most people just aren't aware of them. So I like it at this price. It's definitely a buy. All right. Games for a living, GFAL.
Well, that fire symbol certainly is applicable here, isn't it? It is on fire. And again, we're going back to this common theme of markets which have been previously in sideways ranges or downward trends turning around really quickly, and the dynamics changing. So, of course, we're catching up with this after it's had a pretty significant rally, and it's unfair to expect it to continue to rally in a straight line. Although I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm just saying at some point it needs to consolidate. And close to this 0.2 cents area is a good place for it to do that because there's prior resistance there. But overall, the trend seems to have changed. And I think this has gone from being either a sell or wait to a buy. Now, the big levels, the big downward trend, the one that would be a massive break would be this line here. And also we've got this support point, which was prior support is now resistance. These are the big barriers, and they may well come in at the same time as this goes sideways, consolidates, and then comes up, and that's around 0.02. But overall, that is a change in trend and a change in market dynamics, which is a good technical indication that the market will continue to the upside. So probability says it's a buy, so I'm going to go with that.
Well, damn it is all I can say on this. Yeah, the flip around happens so fast, which is why I tend to dollar cost average when things were cheap, but I didn't have anything that was up that I could sell to roll in games for a living. But I've been talking about games for a living being a good buy in this zone, actually a good buy, and hoping it continue to get cheaper. But it looks like it bottomed out at 10 cents and now just doubled that price. So it's not like this is a bad price. Anything below 20 cents was a really good price. The market cap still 61 million. The fully diluted market cap is under 200 million. Still a good project by some of the best video game background project leads in the blockchain gaming space. So a lot of the team that came to form Games for a Living has massive experience in the gaming space, and they get where blockchain gaming is going. So I expect this project will do really well in a narrative that'll probably do extremely well. They just went to 20 cents handles, so I have to say a wait, because often there is some kind of pullback, even if it's just pulling back some of the gains that have been made before it then runs some more. So for me, I have to rate it a wait. I do like them a lot, though. And that's in a market cap that I really enjoy. So I had to pass on all those ones that are in the billion-dollar market cap stuff. But look at where this is at, 61 million. This has massive price potential growth. If it went to a $10 billion market cap, that is over, that's like 10x, 100x from here. So it's got good potential, you know, that it could, this is the kind of project that could go to a $10 billion market cap. All right. So let's see what else we got in the comments section. We got WanChain. Yes, let's take a look at WanChain.
Yeah, so WanChain still in a neutral position, but as a common theme, it's thrown off its 5th of August low, moved up from it. We've seen other markets do that and then extend upwards. I think it should do that, but I guess it just needs a little bit more of a trigger. Perhaps I put in this 0.2 cents area as a buy point with a stop loss below. Well, I could put it below the absolute low. But yeah, so it's between a buy and a wait. It's very close. I'm tempted just to say it's a buy, just because it's held above here and I've got a decent place. For me, I always look for an area to get out on the chart that so I've got a stop loss, so I don't have to think about whether I should hold it or not. Like a parachute level, if you think of it like that. And we've got one. This August 5th low is that. And also it's built up some support just above that as well at 1.4 cents. So oh, sorry, that is actually 14 cents. Sorry. So it's tempting because it's got two support levels, but on the flip side, it has been really stuck in this range, and it broke out here and that failed, and went to test lows again. So I think on balance, I'm going to wait. I'm going to say I want 0.2 to break, 20 cents to break, and then I'm going to buy it. I'll go with that as a signal. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is higher. And I think we should look at it, if not next week, within the next 2 weeks, just to see how it's performed.
Awesome. The CEO of WanChain is going to be joining us in the next week or two for an AMA with some big announcements. So stay tuned for that. They are one of our strategic partners of the channel. I'm a big fan on WanChain, and they have some of the best bridging technology out there. They launched back in 2000. They were going to help all the chains interact together, and they've delivered on that really well. In fact, incredibly well. But because DeFi hasn't taken off, their token has been really cheap and trading in this pattern. But it looks like this pattern of higher lows, maybe it's finally ready to break further to the upside. So we'll see. 19 cents is an incredible deal. It's definitely a buy for me at this price. So check out Wanchain and definitely stay tuned for our interview. There should be some big announcements coming. All right, let's take a look. I had Wanchain's chart pulled up here, but here is their market cap, right? And most of their tokens are in circulation. So just barely any more to come in. I like that setup. This is a lot of the projects. I found the sweet spot of what I really like to invest in during a bear market is projects that have been out for 1 or 2, like at least 1 year, but if not 2 years is preferable, 2 to 6 years. So you have an idea of how the team is working, what they're doing, are they really delivering? And at the same time, their token being punished by the bear market. And Wanchain is a perfect example of that. Their token absolutely got punished during the bear market, went really, really cheap. And yet what they're doing is a really good narrative, and they're solving good problems within that narrative. And so this fits well within what I like to invest in. Now, back in the previous bear market, I invested in a lot of different things, and that part of my portfolio that was invested in projects like that outperformed everything else. So that's what I focused on almost entirely this last year. All right, let's take a look now. We had another suggestion. I can't say I know Aerodrome Finance, but we will take a look at it. The chart looks like it's been taken off.
Yeah, it's always interesting to look at something that's off the beaten track. So with regard to this, yeah, let's see how much history we've got. Not a lot of history, so bit of caution around the fact that it's fairly new. But obviously, bad start to the trading. It went straight down, made a low, which recovered from there, then had another attempt to get lower than that, which failed. So the bears tried to take control, that didn't work, and now it's had a really good run from early September. So what to make of it? Where's the August low? That's here. Let me just move that chart up so we can see a bit better. We've got this August spike low. So we got some interest. We can see where the interest has been coming in. It's been coming in here at this spike low, and it matched it there, although it's not as obvious. Yeah, I mean, on balance, it looks good. I mean, I'm slightly cautious just because there's not a lot of data, but from a technical point of view, it's more a buy than it is a sell. We are running into some resistance right here at $1. It's a psychological level, and we've always got to think about those psychological levels. Anyone who's bought recently, they say $1 and they go, "Yeah, that's where I want to take it." So it could pause here for a bit. The rate of incline is slightly weaker than this, which was a much sharper move, but that's okay. It just might mean it consolidates here for a bit before it moves higher. I'd say on balance it's a buy, but it does need to break through this $1.70, $1.7 area. And we see it tried that twice. So that's where I would suggest it might get a bit sticky from a short-term perspective. But longer term, it's moving up. So 3 attempts to go down have failed. The Bulls are in control for now. So we're going to go with that team. So I'll say it's a buy.
All right.
But that's for me.
Okay, so first things we look at, what is the length? So I go to CoinMarketCap, I hit all so I can get an idea of how long it's been trading. So since February 24th, so that's not very long. Normally that's a red flag. I'll show you why it's less of a red flag here than normal. Not that it isn't a red flag, it's still just less of a red flag than normal. $610 million market cap. Okay, it's below the $1 billion mark. The fully diluted market cap is double that, so it looks like half their tokens are in circulation. So we see they're listed on Coinbase Exchange. Okay, that's good news. They're also listed on KuCoin. So essentially, they're pretty available globally. To American investors, got Coinbase here. KuCoin covers most of the rest of the globe. Some big markets out there. So then I'm looking for what is Aerodrome Finance. Right here about Aerodrome Finance. Aerodrome Finance is the next generation AMM designed to serve as Base's central liquidity hub. Okay, so they're an automatic market maker on Base. So Base is fairly new, and building on base is fairly new. So it makes sense that they're fairly new because, well, you couldn't have something on base until about that time. So that makes sense. Combining powerful liquidity incentive engine, vote lock governance model, and friendly user experience. Aerodrome inherits the latest features from Velodrome V2. Now, I haven't followed Velodrome V2. Does that mean they like changed their name, or they copied what Velodrome version 2 was doing, which maybe was open source? They took that and based on that and maybe upgraded it. I don't know. But they are listed on Coinbase, and Coinbase is usually pretty careful for non-meme coins on what they bring on. And so that's a big deal that they're on Coinbase. They're also exchangeable on their own exchange. So interesting. Curious. Yeah, I think Paul shared the breakout point. We'll see if it breaks the upside. It's right near that point here. So we'll see if it breaks to the upside of that. If so, it might be ready to run. For me, I don't know. I think base is going to get a lot of the traction in the crypto space this bull run. So I like that this is in that narrative. I do like things that have a cheaper market cap than this, but I do have some things that are in market caps similar to here. So that's not a disqualifier as far as my own personal purchases. I'll have to do more research on this. It's possibly a buy, possibly a wait, kind of in there. Interesting. Great suggestion. Good one for us to look at. Comey Skywalker, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Abe says, Paul, the way you explain TA is so easy to follow. Thank you so much. I have no idea what Zaphazer is saying. No Definity anymore. I don't know why you'd be saying that. I love Definity. Paul works for Definity. Yes, there's definitely more Definity. Whatever no Definity means, probably the opposite of that. What are the tokenomics for Bump? Are there any exchanges planned? I don't know about exchanges planned. They are on Uniswap, so that's easy. What other exchanges are they on? They might be on some other exchange already. Let's see what it's listed here. So they're on MEXC, which in the US you wouldn't have access to, but everywhere else has access to MEXC. Now, if Trump wins, then I expect greater clarity to come from the SEC so that then these exchanges will feel comfortable letting US investors on them again. It's not the exchange's fault that they've had to kick off all the US investors. That's the SEC's fault, because if the exchange allowed US investors, they're at huge risk for getting a lawsuit notice from the SEC and being requested to go to court or pay some huge fines. So I can't blame the exchanges for that. I blame Gary Gensler at the SEC, which has been very anti-crypto. Now, he doesn't come out and say I'm anti-crypto. It's just his actions show that. He was absolutely grilled on Capitol Hill the other day, and many of these lawmakers just made Gary's positions look ridiculous. And like, for example, how he went after stoner cats or whatever. And, if you bought a stoner cat, it gave you access to some of their comics and stuff. And he was comparing, like, if you bought Yankee tickets, it give you access to a Yankee game. So why aren't Yankee tickets a security, whereas stoner cats were declared to be a security? Yankee tickets can go up in value, just like stoner cats can go up in value. And Gary Gensler didn't really want to answer that question, because the answer is, if Gary Gensler could, he would declare Yankee tickets a security too, so that they could have, dominion over everything, is my opinion. But Yankee tickets have been out there for way too long for Gary Gensler to come in and declare them as securities. But crypto is fairly new, so he's trying to get everything deemed within the jurisdiction of the SEC as a big power grab, is what it seems like to me. So, yeah, his positions look ridiculous under scrutiny. Have I ever been a fan of VRA? Yes, the answer to that is yes. Am I currently holding it? No, I'm just in other things. I think VRA will still do well. I just am in other things I believe in more, that I just hope run more and I followed more closely than VRA. Doesn't mean VRA will do poorly. I think they'll actually do well. It's just some of the other stuff I'm in, I hope does even better. Another thing here. This was an interesting comment by Harris. OMI has been my worst purchase since 2022. So it depends on what you consider like purchases, right? So Axie Infinity was one of my worst purchases I made in 2019, if you're looking at it that way, because from 2019 till the end of 2020, the price just got savaged, absolutely devastated. So if I were in December of 2020 and I were saying, oh my gosh, the price is so down, I would say that was my absolute worst purchase. Cool. What happened the next year? Well, from that point, it went like 500x, at which point I sold. So 100x from what I paid for it, because it was down probably about 80%. And so, it's worth 20% of what I paid for it, which isn't an exciting place to be. But then it ran up like 400% or 400x, and I sold, or 500x, I don't know. It went up incredibly, and I sold it about 100x what I paid for it. So timing is everything, right? So OMI has gone down tremendously since its blow off top in 2021. And often the pendulum swings really far each way. So the way Paul addresses this strategy is he waits till the odds are really strong that things are breaking out to the upside. So he doesn't get to experience those big 80% retracements, which my method sometimes experiences, where I buy things and I buy things I like fundamentally that I think will do really well in the coming bull market. And sometimes I experience 80% retracement, sometimes even larger, sometimes much less. And then I just dollar cost average in them to low average price. And then I wait till the bull market to see how it does. So we're at that point, we don't know what OMI is going to do in the bull market, and we haven't seen that. So for now, it may feel like that's the case. But what if OMI does a 400x? Was it your worst purchase? Probably not. It was probably one of your best purchases if it turns around and does a 400x from here. Cool. Paul, thank you for joining us. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We went a little bit longer than normal. Hope everyone enjoyed that.
I think it's very interesting that we're hearing or being asked to look at more picks, and I think it's indicative of the market heating up again. So, great to be here as always, and look forward to next week.
Yes, great to have you here, and I'm excited for some excitement to come back into the market. I've been waiting for this period. All right, everyone. I think things are heating up again. We'll see. Sometimes we have these little flash in the pans, and then it cools back down. But overall, the momentum has been building towards a bigger run, and this may be some of the start of the next leg up. Remember, the run didn't just start now. It started way back when Bitcoin bottomed out at 14K, and then it went all the way to 75K and then pulled back some. It's been trading sideways, but there is much further that it's likely to go. And as it does, that's going to bring so much attention to the crypto space. So we're seeing some of these larger alt caps run. We're probably going to see some of the smaller altcoins follow that. So I'm excited. Hopefully you've made really smart picks on, at least the way I invest is on projects that I think are fundamentally strong. And then I wait till they pop off and do incredibly well, and then I take profits. Made me a ton of money the last bear market into the bull market that followed. I don't see why this one will do much different. In fact, this time I'm much more focused on the projects that outperformed the rest of my portfolio last time that did by far the best. And so we'll see how this bull run goes. I'm really excited for it. You guys probably know what this wrap is all about. Enjoy this wrap. Listen to the principles behind it, because I wrote the words for this wrap to just kind of be a fun way to reinforce the principles. Thanks so much.
to the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.